Hello, passionate Golden State Warriors fan. If every Stephen Curry shot still sends shivers down your spine, if every epic comeback at the Chase Center still echoes in your memory as if it were yesterday, and if deep inside you still carry the belief that the Golden Dynasty can rise from the ashes, get ready. What you're about to hear is not just any rumor, not speculation thrown into the wind. It is a silent, profound, and risky move that could completely transform the direction of the San Francisco franchise and perhaps the NBA itself. But before we dive into the backstage of this storyline, make sure you're following everything closely. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and show your support, because what's coming next may be the boldest turnaround since Steve Kerr took over. Imagine the unthinkable. One of the most electrifying figures in the league, a player who embodies the essence of speed, aggression, and modern intensity, wearing the blue and gold of the Warriors. A name that divides opinions, sparking both fascination and fear, but that undeniably carries a devastating energy. That name is Ja Morant, and contrary to what many believe, we're not talking about random Twitter rumors or sports blog chatter. We're talking about real conversations, discreet ones, closed-door meetings between executives, carefully calculated moves that don't make it to mainstream media, but circulate through the inner corridors of the NBA. Morant's presence in discussions involving the Warriors has ceased to be fantasy and has become a concrete possibility. The immediate question that arises is, why so much interest? And the answer can be summed up in one word: impact. Morant, alongside Curry, would create one of the most devastating offensive duos the modern game has ever seen. On one side, the greatest shooter of all time, capable of stretching defenses to the limit, forcing opponents into chaotic triple-team rotations. On the other, an explosive point guard who slices through defensive systems like a blade, attacking the rim with almost superhuman acceleration. Picture this. Curry pulls the defense outward beyond the perimeter. Morant finds the empty lane and detonates. The defense collapses, and amid this organized chaos, young, versatile, hungry players emerge, ready to fit perfectly into the chessboard commanded by Steve Kerr's creative mind. But the plan doesn't stop at the brilliance of a single name. Behind the scenes, two talents, still relatively unknown to the wider American sports audience, are being studied as potential pieces of a silent revolution. Two young men from the Philippines, a basketball-crazed nation that would see in them the chance of a global dream. Sotto Abando and Sotto. They are not stars yet. They don't make daily headlines, but they carry something that cannot be measured by cold statistics: grit, commitment, and an insatiable hunger to prove they belong on the biggest stage of the sport. Abando is pure energy. His presence on the court changes the rhythm of the game. He runs, presses, defends, dives into every possession as if it were his last. He's the type of player who refuses to be a mere supporting actor, even if he isn't the leading star. His intensity fits perfectly into Kerr's philosophy, which values versatility, intelligence, and collective effort. He can play as a wing, switch on defense with ease, drive to the basket when needed, and create space for shooters. It's not about flashy numbers, but about an invisible impact that translates into wins. Sotto, on the other hand, is a rarity. Standing at 2.21 meters, he could easily be dismissed as just another lumbering giant in the paint, but his reality is much more complex. Unlike many tall, limited centers, Sotto shows fluid movement, above-average game reading, sharp vision, and most of all, a refined touch that impresses with its softness. He may not yet be a big-name prospect, but he carries a potential that intrigues scouts and coaches alike. It's as if he were a raw diamond waiting for the right polish. And the Warriors, with their culture of development, could be the perfect place for that transformation. Now think about the tactical impact. Since the days of Andrew Bogut, the Warriors haven't had a center who truly combines rim protection with the intelligence to space the floor. Sotto could assume that role. A player willing to do the dirty work, but also capable of becoming a protagonist in decisive moments. Strong screens, presence on the boards, pinpoint passing in transition, and a willingness to evolve in a system that values every detail. For a team that needs to renew without losing its identity, Sotto could be the unexpected but essential piece. The great dilemma, however, is not only in attracting these names, but in how to build a balanced roster, mixing past and future experience and youth. On one side, Curry remains the brain and soul of the system. Alongside him, Morant would bring the accelerated pulse of the new generation. In the paint, Sotto would offer the physical and tactical presence that has been missing. And to complete the picture, Abando, Moody, Kuminga, and other young players would add speed, vigor, and intensity. The result? An unpredictable team, capable of pressing defensively on every possession, punishing in transition, and imposing a physical pace few could match. But as always, none of this would come without sacrifice. The salary cap is relentless. For this transformation to occur, fan-favorite players may need to be traded. Expensive contracts might have to be renegotiated. Roster routines would have to be broken. There is no bold rebuild without pain. It is the cold reality of the NBA's backstage. To gain something new, something valuable must be left behind. And that is perhaps the hardest part for fans, because it means letting go of names that have already written important chapters in the franchise's history. However, it is precisely in this type of decision that the courage of a dynasty is defined. To stick with the same roster, aged and predictable, is to walk into stagnation. To gamble on a bold renewal, blending established stars with rising talent, is to leap into the unknown in search of glory. And if you still doubt the scale of this, picture this scene. Conference semifinal, Warriors trailing by 2, 12 seconds left on the clock. Curry gets the ball and draws 3 defenders. He dishes it out. Morant accelerates, slices the defense, and at the last second finds Abando wide open in the corner. The shot goes up. Silence for a moment. The ball swishes clean. Victory. The Chase Center erupts like a volcano. That is the kind of moment that only happens when a franchise has the courage to change. Those goosebump-inducing scenes, the ones that make the heart race and the crowd erupt with emotion, are not built out of nowhere. They are born from the boldness to imagine something that does not yet exist, from the courage to break out of the comfort zone, and from the ability to see opportunities where others only see risk. That is exactly what is at stake behind the scenes of the Golden State Warriors. The franchise that redefined modern basketball with three-point shooting and relentless movement now needs to reinvent itself once again. And perhaps, to write a new chapter of glory, it may be necessary to make the riskiest gamble of the Steve Kerr era. The name Ja Morant does not appear solely because of his quality on the court, but also for its symbolism. He represents a generation marked by vertical play, physical intensity, and transition speed. Morant is chaotic, unpredictable, and electrifying. Alongside Curry, he could become the spark to reignite the dynasty's flame. Of course, there are doubts. Could his aggressive style fit into a system that values discipline, altruism, and collective intelligence? That is the big question. But if there is one culture capable of turning raw talent into legacy, that culture is the Warriors. We cannot ignore that bringing in Morant would also be a strategic move off the court. Imagine the impact. The entire NBA would turn its eyes to San Francisco. Marketing would skyrocket. Global viewership would grow even more. The Curry-Morant duo would instantly become one of the most attractive in the league. An unmissable spectacle. And that's without even mentioning the cultural connection. Adding Kai Sotto and Renz Abando to the roster would open unprecedented doors for the franchise in the Asian market, especially in the Philippines, where basketball is almost a religion. Filipino fans, already passionate, would see their idols playing alongside Curry and Morant, which would mean not only sporting support but also massive commercial expansion. But this scenario doesn't depend only on dreams. It requires behind-the-scenes engineering. How to manage salaries? Who would leave? What assets would be used in a trade? These are painful but inevitable questions. Historic players like Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, pillars of the dynasty, would they be willing to make room and accept new roles? What would fans be willing to lose in the name of bold renewal? Each answer shapes the franchise's future, and each decision carries the weight of history. At this point, Steve Kerr's role becomes even more crucial. He is not just a coach. He is a manager of egos, an architect of systems, and a guardian of the Warriors' culture. Kerr has already proven capable of uniting stars like Durant, Curry, Thompson, and Green within one scheme, avoiding destructive clashes and maximizing talents. Now, his mission would be even more delicate, to bring in Morant, a player with a strong personality and explosive style, into an ecosystem that thrives on balance and harmony. It would not be easy. But if anyone has the credibility and experience to do it, it's him. And in the middle of this equation, names like Abando and Sotto cannot be treated merely as supporting roles. They would be fundamental in building a new identity. Young, hungry players have the power to inject energy into a locker room, to keep veterans motivated, and to give the team that unpredictable edge that can turn difficult games. Abando, with his defensive intensity and versatility, could become a key piece in playoff moments, guarding explosive wings or punishing careless defenses. Meanwhile, Sotto, with his height and intelligence, could transform into the center who balances physical play, giving the Warriors something they haven't had in years, a dominant presence in the paint who also understands the collective game. Picture the scene once again, but now in an NBA Finals. Warriors against an Eastern powerhouse. Curry starts the game hot but gets suffocated by increasingly aggressive defenses. Morant then takes over, attacking the rim and creating space. In the third quarter, Abando comes in, brings defensive energy, forces turnovers, and ignites the crowd. In the final period, Sotto holds down the paint, secures crucial rebounds, and even scores important points in pick and rolls with Morant. The result? A complete balanced team that mixes stars and workers, veterans and youngsters, scorers and defenders. This is the kind of construction that not only competes for championships, but also redefines standards. All of this, however, will only become real if the behind-the-scenes work continues in silence. That is why, up to now, mainstream media hasn't talked much about this move. While reporters focus their headlines on more obvious negotiations, something deeper is happening in the Bay Area. Subtle moves, discreet meetings, conversations that never reach the spotlight. The kind of behind-the-scenes work that only emerges to the world when it's ready to explode. And this is where long-term vision comes into play. The Warriors know they cannot live only off past glory. Curry is still a star, but he will not be eternal. Thompson is no longer the same after injuries. Draymond remains a defensive pillar, but time takes its toll. Youth needs to step in, and the transition must be intelligent. Renewal alone is not enough. It must be renewal while maintaining identity, preserving the culture that made the franchise one of the most respected in history. And that is exactly what makes this possible move so fascinating. It's not just a sporting leap. It is a move for the future. While fans dream of three-pointers, dunks, and celebrations at Chase Center, the franchise executives are crunching numbers, measuring risks, and projecting scenarios. Every detail matters. From Curry's willingness to share the spotlight to young talent's readiness to embrace larger roles, everything must align for this silent revolution to become reality. When we talk about profound changes in a franchise, there is always a tension between tradition and innovation. In the case of the Warriors, that tension is even more intense because we are talking about a team that, over the last 10 years, has shaped not only its own identity, but also influenced the entire league. The way they play, how they move, and how they value the collective became a model for other teams, each trying in their own way to copy the recipe for success. But there comes a moment when the model needs to be reinvented so as not to become predictable. And that is exactly the point where the Warriors stand now. It is impossible to think of this new era without remembering how the arrival of Kevin Durant years ago completely changed history. At that moment, many believed that there was already enough talent in San Francisco. But the boldness of bringing in a player of Durant's caliber transformed a championship team into an almost unbeatable machine. Now, the possibility of adding Ja Morant brings that same dilemma to the surface. Is it worth altering a consolidated structure in the name of a bold gamble? The difference is that this time the equation is even more delicate because it involves not only technical fit, but also cultural reconstruction. Morant, with a career marked by moments of brilliance and controversies, would need to adapt to a culture of responsibility and discipline. And that is precisely the Warriors' greatest asset, their culture. Players who arrive there are not just athletes. They are shaped within a system that demands commitment, intelligence, and a collective spirit. If Morant were willing to embrace this, he could not only revitalize his career, but also write a legacy within one of the NBA's most historic franchises. And when we look at the names of Ja Morant and Sotto, we realize the issue goes beyond the court. They represent something that transcends the game: cultural connection, expansion of boundaries, the valuing of basketball markets that are passionate yet still seeking their place on the main stage. Imagine the impact on the Filipino community scattered around the world of seeing two of their talents wearing the Golden State colors. It wouldn't just be a sporting move, but a political and cultural one. It would be like opening a bridge between continents, uniting passions, and creating an even stronger global identity. This kind of vision is precisely what separates an ordinary franchise from an international powerhouse. Because in modern basketball, winning championships is essential, but building a brand that crosses borders is what ensures the future. And in that respect, the Warriors have always been ahead. From the three-point revolution to the way they turned players into global icons, the franchise has always known how to position itself. With Abando and Sotto, they would not only be adding tactical pieces, but expanding their worldwide reach in an unprecedented way. Returning to the sporting aspect, the tactical fit of these names in a renewed roster opens up an infinity of possibilities. Imagine a lineup where Curry and Morant share ball-handling duties, with Abando functioning as a versatile piece on the perimeter and Sotto anchoring the paint. That would give the Warriors the ability to alternate between a fast-paced game, nearly unstoppable in transition, and a more physical one capable of holding off dominant opponents inside. This duality is exactly what the current team lacks, often relying too heavily on Curry's brilliance and finding itself limited when he is well guarded. But like any ambitious project, this construction would require sacrifices. Fans would need to accept the departure of historic names, perhaps even idols. Management would need the courage to back unpopular decisions in the name of a more promising future. And the veteran players themselves would have to be willing to give up space, not only in minutes on the court, but also in protagonism. That is where the greatness of a franchise is tested, in its ability to make tough decisions without losing the essence that makes it special. The press may not be openly reporting it, but within the halls of the NBA, there is a certainty. If the Warriors truly manage to align this project, the entire league will feel the impact. Because a combination of Curry, Morant, versatile young players, and emerging talents would change not only the team's dynamics, but also force rivals to reorganize. Lakers, Nuggets, Clippers, Mavericks, all would have to rethink their strategies against a renewed Warriors team, faster and more unpredictable than ever. And here arises an interesting point: the psychological factor. Imagine the impact on an opponent who must prepare to face Curry and Morant together. While Curry stretches defenses beyond the perimeter, Morant destroys them inside. It is like facing two opposite forces that complete each other. A team already known for its unpredictability would gain even more layers. And when defenses, by some miracle, manage to contain both, they would still have to deal with hungry youngsters like Kuminga, Moody, Abando, and the giant Sotto. It is almost like playing chess where every opponent's move is punished with an unexpected response. The fans, in turn, would experience a roller coaster of emotions. On one side, the pain of saying goodbye to players who marked an era. On the other, the hope of seeing the franchise rise again in grand style. And we cannot forget that basketball is, above all, a spectacle. What the Warriors would be offering is not just victories, but stories. And stories are what make sports unforgettable. This move, if it materializes, could become one of the boldest chapters in recent NBA history. A team that was already synonymous with innovation and courage would once again prove it has no fear of reinventing itself. And deep down, that is what keeps the dynasty's flame alive, the ability to look to the future without being afraid to let go of the past. And so, fans, we reach the end of this analysis, which could very well become the beginning of a new era for the Golden State Warriors. What is being drawn behind the scenes is not just a trade, not just the arrival of new names. It is the real possibility of rewriting the history of a dynasty that seemed to have reached its limit, but still has the strength to surprise the world. Imagine Curry and Morant together, supported by hungry youngsters like Abando and Sotto, in a system built to win. This is not just a team. It is a spectacle in the making. But now I want to hear your opinion. Do you believe this revolution is possible? Do you think the Warriors should risk everything for a bold future or keep the current roster even with its limitations? Leave your comment below, because your voice is essential in this conversation. And before you go, make sure to leave a like to support the channel, subscribe so you don't miss any detail of the NBA's backstage, and turn on the notification bell to be alerted every time a new video comes out. Here you will always be up to date with the biggest bombs, rumors, and exclusive analyses in the basketball world. Get ready, because what might be coming could change everything.